James Truman walked into Lakeside Cafe on December 20th, thinking he was meeting someone about his late wife's memorial scholarship fund. But the second he saw the woman in scrubs sitting in the corner booth, the second she looked up and said 5 words that stopped his heart cold, "Sarah wanted me to find you," he realized he'd been completely set up. And what she told him next would leave him crying in front of a room full of strangers on a Friday night, 3 days before Christmas. Hey everyone, welcome back to Unbroken Truths. Before we dive into this incredible story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We absolutely love seeing how far these stories travel and connecting with all of you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. We share real stories about real people that restore your faith in humanity. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this one. To understand why those 5 words hit James like a freight train, you need to know what his morning looked like. And honestly, it looked like every morning for the past 2 years. Wake up at 5:30, get his daughter Lily ready for school while she barely said 3 words, then drive to whatever job site Truman Construction was working that week. This particular Friday, he was at a residential renovation in the Chicago suburbs, tearing out a kitchen that hadn't been updated since 1985. His phone rang around noon while he was sitting in his truck eating a sandwich that tasted like cardboard. His best friend Monica's name popped up on the screen, and he almost didn't answer because Monica had been on him for months about getting back out there, and he wasn't interested. Remember how Sarah always talked about starting that scholarship fund for underprivileged kids? Monica's voice came through way too cheerful for a Friday afternoon. James felt his chest get tight because, yeah, he remembered. They talked about it in the hospice bed 2 weeks before she passed, her hand in his hand while she made him promise he'd do something good with her memory. "I found someone who wants to help make it happen." Monica continued like she had this all planned out. "Big donor, but she wants to meet you first, get a feel for what Sarah's vision was." James was already listing excuses when Monica delivered the guilt card. "It's just coffee, James. 1 hour. Sarah would want this." And that's how he ended up walking into that cafe at 6:55 p.m., scanning the room for someone who looked like a big donor type, and spotting a woman in hospital scrubs in the corner booth. What James didn't know was that the woman sitting there, Elena Hayes, was finishing the hardest shift of her life, because she's been carrying Sarah Truman's message for exactly 2 years, waiting for this precise moment during Christmas week to deliver words that would change everything. James Truman wasn't always the hollow-eyed man who moved through life like a ghost. 2 years ago, he was the guy who sang off-key in the shower, made terrible dad jokes that made his daughter groan, and built homes with the kind of passion that made clients cry when they saw the finished product. He inherited Truman Construction from his father, but it was Sarah who taught him that building wasn't just about walls and foundations. It was about creating spaces where families could make memories. Now, at 36, he looked older. The lines around his eyes had deepened from sleepless nights spent staring at the ceiling, wondering how you're supposed to keep breathing when half your heart stops beating. His crew noticed it, the way he lost that spark, how he worked with mechanical precision but zero joy. His 7-year-old daughter Lily noticed it even more. Lily had Sarah's dark curls and curious eyes, but lately those eyes had gone quiet. She stopped asking about Christmas decorations after the 2nd year of, "Maybe next year, sweetheart." Stopped talking about her day at school because Dad's responses had become automatic. "That's great, honey," without actually listening. She was learning, in real time, that grief could swallow a parent whole and leave just a shell behind. James knew he was failing her, knew that Sarah would be furious if she could see him now, frozen in December 2023 while the world kept spinning forward. But knowing and fixing were 2 different things, and every morning he woke up choosing survival over living because living hurt too damn much. On the other side of town, Elena Hayes was battling her own demons while taking care of everyone else's dying loved ones. At 33, she was a hospice nurse for 8 years, ever since losing her own mother to the same cancer, that eventually took Sarah Truman. Elena had turned her grief into purpose, holding hands through final breaths, bearing witness to last words, carrying the weight of 100 families' worst days. But somewhere along the way, she forgot that caregivers need care too. Her apartment was essentially a place to shower and sleep between shifts. Her last relationship had ended 2 years ago, when her boyfriend complained she was married to her job. Her friends had stopped inviting her to things because she always canceled at the last minute for a patient emergency. The truth Elena wouldn't admit to anyone, not even herself most days, was that she was drowning in other people's grief to avoid facing her own. Every family she helped through loss was another chance to get it right, to be the support system she wished she had when her mom died. But it was also exhausting, soul-crushing work that left her hollow. Sarah Truman had seen through all of that during those final 6 weeks. Between morphine doses and moments of clarity, Sarah had looked at Alina with knowing eyes and said, "You're just like James. You think if you work hard enough, stay busy enough, the pain can't catch you." Alina had tried to deflect with professional platitudes, but Sarah wasn't having it. "Promise me something," Sarah had whispered one night, her hand surprisingly strong as it gripped Elena's wrist. "2 years from now, Christmas week, find my husband. I'm going to give you something to tell him, but you have to wait exactly 2 years. Can you do that?" And Alina, who never made personal promises to patients because boundaries were essential, had looked into Sarah Truman's eyes and said, "I promise." That promise had been sitting in Elena's purse for 730 days, getting heavier with each passing month. She changed jobs twice, moved apartments once, but that sealed envelope with James, written in Sarah's handwriting, had traveled with her everywhere. Some nights, she'd take it out and stare at it, wondering what could possibly be inside that required a 2-year waiting period. Now, sitting in Lakeside Cafe watching James Truman walk toward her table, Elena felt her heart hammering against her ribs. He looked exactly like Sarah described, tall, broad-shouldered from construction work, with kind eyes that had gone sad. He was wearing that ratty Cub sweatshirt Sarah had complained about, and Elena felt tears prick her eyes because somehow that detail made this all devastatingly real. "Natalie," James said, extending his hand, using the fake name Monica had obviously given him. "I'm James Truman." Elena stood up too fast, nearly knocking over her water glass. "James, yes, hi, please, sit down." Her voice was shaking, and she could see the confusion cross his face. This wasn't how donor meetings usually started, and they both knew it. What neither of them knew yet was that Monica hadn't just arranged a meeting. She orchestrated a collision between two people who had been running from the same thing for 2 years. And Sarah Truman, even from beyond the grave, was about to force them both to stop running. If you're loving this story so far, do us a favor and drop a comment telling us what you think is in that envelope. We read every single comment, and honestly, your theories always blow our minds. They did the awkward small talk thing for about 30 seconds, weather, traffic, the cafe's holiday decorations, before James cut through it like he cut through drywall, direct and efficient. "So Monica mentioned you're interested in Sarah's scholarship fund?" Elena's face shifted from nervous to confused in half a second. "Scholarship fund? She told me you had questions about Sarah's final days, that you needed to talk to someone who was there." James felt his stomach drop straight through the floor. "Wait, what? You knew Sarah?" Elena nodded slowly, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. "I was her hospice nurse. I was with her for the last 6 weeks. James stood up so fast his chair scraped loud against the tile floor. Every head in the cafe turned to look at them, but he didn't care. His hands were shaking, his vision tunneling. "Monica set this up." His voice came out way too loud. "This isn't about a donation. This is what? A blind date disguised as a business meeting?" He was grabbing his jacket off the back of the chair, feeling betrayed and furious, and like the walls were closing in. Because how dare Monica use Sarah's memory like this? How dare she trick him into meeting someone under false pretenses? Elena stood too, and she looked genuinely devastated. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. If I'd known, I never would have agreed to this." James could see she was telling the truth, which made him feel slightly less angry, but still desperate to get out of there. "It's not your fault. Monica had no right. I'm sorry you got pulled into whatever matchmaking scheme this is. He was heading for the door, weaving between tables, just needed air and space and to be literally anywhere else. His hand was on the door handle when Elena's voice cut through the ambient noise of the cafe like a knife. James, wait. Sarah wanted me to find you. James stopped dead, his back still turned because if he looked at her, he might actually break down right there. What are you talking about? Elena's voice was shaking but determined. Before she passed, she made me promise something. She said, 2 years from now, Christmas week, find James and tell him something for me. She knew you'd shut down. She knew you'd stop living, and she wanted me to deliver a message. James turned around slowly. The entire cafe had gone quiet, everyone watching this scene unfold like it was dinner theater. His eyes were already burning with tears he refused to let fall. She planned this? 2 years ago? Elena nodded, her own eyes wet. She loved you so much, James. She wanted to make sure you'd be okay. Please sit back down and let me tell you what she said. I've been carrying her words for 2 years. James walked back to that corner booth on legs that didn't feel entirely solid. The whole cafe was still watching them like this was the most interesting thing that had happened all week, and he slid into the seat across from Elena without saying a word because his throat was too tight to form sentences. Elena reached into her purse with hands that were shaking and pulled out a sealed envelope that looked worn from being carried around for way too long. James saw his name written in Sarah's handwriting across the front and felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed. She gave me this the night before she passed, Elena said quietly. Made me promise not to open it, just to give it to you exactly 2 years later during Christmas week. I've been carrying it in my bag every single day, waiting for the right moment. James stared at that envelope like it might explode if he touched it. I don't know if I can read this here. Not in front of all these people. Elena nodded, understanding completely. You don't have to read it now, but I also need to tell you what she said out loud, what she made me memorize so I could say it to your face when I found you. James looked up at her, this stranger who cared for his wife in her final weeks, this woman who was carrying a message like some kind of emotional time capsule. She made you memorize something? Elena's eyes were already wet. She said the letter was for later when you were alone, but the words were for the exact moment I tracked you down. James braced himself, hands flat on the table like he was trying to keep the world from tilting sideways. Okay, tell me what she said. Elena took a shaky breath, and her voice came out steady despite the tears starting to fall. She said, tell James that I'm not gone. I'm in every sunrise he shows Lily, every house he builds with those strong hands, every moment he chooses joy over grief. Tell him that loving me doesn't mean stopping his life. It means living it fully because I can't anymore. Tell him 2 years is long enough to mourn, and it's time to let someone new make him smile. James put his head in his hands right there at the table. His shoulders started shaking, and he was crying in front of a cafe full of strangers, but he couldn't have stopped if his life depended on it. Elena reached across the table and took his hand without thinking, pure nurse instinct kicking in. She also said, tell him Lily needs to see him happy, not just surviving. That little girl is watching everything and learning that grief is forever, and Sarah didn't want that. James looked up with tears streaming down his face. How did she know? How did she know I'd still be stuck 2 years later? Elena's thumb rubbed circles on the back of his hand. Because she knew you, James. She said you'd bury yourself in work. You'd build beautiful homes for other families while your own house stayed frozen in time. You'd put Lily first and yourself never, and she wanted you to know that's not what she wanted for you. The waitress appeared with a whole box of tissues and 2 glasses of water without saying a word, just set them down and walked away, and James grabbed a handful of tissues trying to pull himself together. I haven't decorated for Christmas in 2 years, he said, and the confession came out like he was admitting to a crime. Lily asks every year, and I make excuses. Say we're too busy. Say maybe next year. She stopped asking because she knows the answer. Elena squeezed his hand. Sarah knew that too. That's why she picked Christmas week for me to find you. She said it was your favorite time of year before she got sick, and she wanted you to love it again. James let out this broken laugh. She thought of everything, didn't she? Planned this whole thing from a hospice bed. She loved you so much, Elena said, and her voice cracked. Those last 6 weeks, all she talked about was you and Lily, how you met in college at some terrible party, how you proposed while you were both covered in paint from renovating your first apartment, how you cried harder than she did when Lily was born. James felt more tears coming. I can't believe you remember all that. Elena smiled through her own tears. It's hard to forget. She made me promise I'd wait exactly 2 years because she said that's how long you'd need to grieve properly before you'd be ready to hear any of this. And she was very specific about Christmas week because she wanted you to have joy again during the holidays. They sat there for a moment, both crying, both holding hands across the table like lifelines. Around them, the cafe had started moving again, conversations resuming, silverware clinking, but their corner booth felt suspended in time. There's more, Elena said softly. She made me take a video, 3 days before she passed. Do you want to see it, or is this already too much? James felt his heart pounding so hard it hurt. His mouth went dry. He looked at Elena and saw someone who had been carrying an impossible weight for 2 years, just like him. Someone who understood loss in a way most people never would. There's a video? His voice came out strangled. Elena nodded and pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She made me swear I wouldn't show you until I delivered the message first. But James, before I play it, I need you to know something. Sarah didn't just pick me because I was her nurse. She had a reason. She told me things about you, about what you'd need, and she told me things about myself that I've been running from. James wiped his face. What do you mean? Elena's voice dropped even lower. She said we were the same, both hiding from life by throwing ourselves into work. Both were convinced that if we stayed busy enough, the pain couldn't catch us. She said, Elena's voice broke. She said 2 years from now, we both need someone who understands, someone who got it. James felt something shift in his chest. Not quite hope, but something adjacent to it. She was matchmaking from a hospice bed? I didn't want to believe it either, Elena said, but Sarah Truman was the most determined person I ever met. She planned every detail, the timing, the location, the message, and I think, she hesitated. I think maybe Monica was in on it. Maybe Sarah told her to set this up exactly this way. James's eyes went wide. You think Sarah told Monica to trick us both? I think Sarah knew you'd never agree to a date, and I think she knew I'd never break patient-nurse boundaries unless enough time had passed. So she set it up so we'd have no choice but to meet, to talk, to... Elena trailed off. To what? James asked, and his voice was softer now, less angry. To see each other, Elena finished. They stared at each other across the table, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the knowledge that they were both drowning in the same ocean of grief. Show me the video, James said finally. I need to see her. I need to hear her voice. If this story is hitting you in the feels, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever received a message from someone you lost? Drop it in the comments. Your stories matter to us, and they matter to this community we're building together. Elena pulled up the video on her phone and turned it so they could both see the screen. And there was Sarah in the hospice bed, looking thin, but smiling that smile James used to wake up to every morning. Her eyes were bright despite the exhaustion, and just seeing her face again made James's breath catch in his throat. Hi, baby. Sarah's voice came through the tiny speaker, and James made this sound like all the air had been punched out of his lungs. If you're watching this, it means Elena found you, and it's been 2 years, and I'm hoping you've started to heal. I'm hoping Lily has your smile and your terrible sense of humor. I'm hoping you're still building beautiful homes with those strong hands that I love so much. James had to stop and wipe his eyes, but he couldn't look away from the screen. Sarah's expression got more serious. But I'm also guessing you're still scared. Scared to move on. Scared that loving someone new means forgetting me. So let me be crystal clear. It doesn't. I want you to fall in love again. I want Lily to see you happy with someone who makes you laugh. I want you to have more love in your life, not less. Elena was crying now too, watching this woman she cared for delivering a message from beyond the grave. "You once told me that love isn't finite," Sarah continued, and her voice got softer, more intimate. "That loving me didn't mean you loved your family less. It meant your heart grew. Remember that. Your heart can grow again." Sarah leaned closer to the camera, and James could see she was getting tired, but she pushed through. "I handpicked Elena for this because in those final weeks, I saw her heart. She's been hurt too. She gives everything to everyone else and nothing to herself. She needs someone to see her for once, to remind her that caregivers need care too." James looked up at Elena, who had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "She was talking about you," James whispered. "She wanted us to meet. She planned this." Sarah wasn't done. "Elena, if you're watching this with him, thank you for keeping your promise. I know these 2 years have been hard for you too. I know you've been hiding behind your work, just like I knew James would hide behind his. You both need permission to stop running. So here it is. Permission granted. From me to both of you." Sarah's eyes were wet now too in the video. "James, all I ask is this. Don't waste the life you have left honoring the life we shared. Live, baby. Decorate for Christmas. Go on dates. Marry again if you find the right person. Give Lily a full life, not a memorial. I love you forever, but you have to let me go enough to let someone else in." She blew a kiss at the camera. "And Elena, stop being invisible. Let someone see you. Let James see you. You deserve to be loved as much as you love everyone else." The video ended, and for a moment, James and Elena just sat there in stunned silence. Around them, the cafe had gone completely quiet again. Half the place was crying, including the waitress who brought over more tissues without being asked. "She knew everything," Elena said, her voice breaking. "She knew I'd still be alone. She knew I'd still be throwing myself into work, avoiding my own life. How did she know?" James shook his head in wonder. "Because Sarah saw people. It's what made her so good at teaching. She could look at a student and know exactly what they needed to hear." "She saw us both drowning," Elena whispered, "and she threw us a lifeline 2 years in advance." James reached across the table and took both of Elena's hands in his. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. I'm terrified right now. Terrified of what I'm feeling, terrified of betraying Sarah's memory, terrified of failing again if I try this." Elena squeezed his hands. "I'm terrified too. I've spent 8 years being the nurse, the helper, the one who holds everyone else together. I don't know how to be the one who needs someone." "Sarah knew that," James said, and something like understanding was dawning in his eyes. "She didn't just want to help me. She wanted to help you too. She cared about you." Elena nodded, fresh tears falling. "Those 6 weeks with her changed my life. She treated me like a person, not just a caregiver. She asked about my life, my dreams, my grief. She saw me when I'd spent years making sure no one could." They sat there holding hands across the table, two broken people who had just been given permission to start healing by a woman who loved them both enough to plan their collision from her deathbed. "I don't know what this is," James said finally. "I don't know if this is friendship or something more, or just two people who understand grief. But I know I don't want to walk away from you right now. I know that for the first time in 2 years, I don't feel completely alone." Elena smiled through her tears. "I don't want you to walk away either. Sarah was right. I've been invisible for so long, I forgot what it feels like to be seen." "I see you," James said, and his voice was rough with emotion. "I see someone who's been carrying impossible weight, someone who gives everything and asks for nothing, someone who kept a promise to a dying woman even though it cost you something to carry it." "And I see you," Elena replied. "I see someone who's been surviving instead of living, someone who loves his daughter so much he forgot to love himself, someone who builds homes for everyone else but lives in a house that's become a shrine to grief." The truth hung between them, raw and vulnerable and terrifying. They talked for another hour, sharing stories about Sarah's final days. James asked questions he was too scared to ask anyone else. Was she in pain? Was she scared? Did she know how much he loved her? Elena answered everything with the honesty of someone who was there, who held Sarah's hand through the worst of it. She wasn't scared at the end. She was at peace. She said she had a beautiful life, and her only regret was leaving you and Lily too soon. Around 9 p.m., James looked at his phone and realized he had been there for 2 hours. I should go. Lily's with my brother, but I need to get home. They stood up awkwardly, and in the parking lot, reality seemed to crash back in. The video, the message, the intensity of the evening, it all felt too big, too fast, too much. Thank you for keeping your promise to her, James said, shoving his hands in his pockets. For finding me, for all of this. Of course, Elena said, and there was this moment where neither of them knew what to do next. Monica probably thought this would turn into something, James said, and his voice was tight. Like, romantic or whatever. But I'm not ready for that. I'm sorry. I know Sarah wanted. I'm not either, Elena cut him off, looking relieved. I wasn't looking for a date. I just wanted to deliver the message. Okay, good, James said. So we're on the same page. They said awkward goodbyes and drove away in opposite directions, and James sat in his truck in his own driveway for 20 minutes just staring at that sealed letter, feeling like he'd just survived an earthquake. 3 days later, on December 23rd, James still hadn't opened the letter. It was sitting on his nightstand taunting him, and Lily came into his room that morning before school. "Daddy, what's that?" she asked, pointing at the envelope. "Just a letter from Mommy," James said, his voice thick. "She wrote it a long time ago." Lily climbed onto his bed. "Are you going to read it?" "When I'm ready, baby." Lily went quiet for a minute, then said in this small voice that absolutely destroyed him, "I miss her, but I also miss you. You're here, but you're not really here." James felt like she just drove a nail straight through his heart. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Lily looked at him with eyes way too old for 7 years. "You don't smile anymore, Daddy. You don't do Christmas stuff. Mommy loved Christmas, and now we don't even have a tree." James pulled his daughter into a hug and realized she was right. He was so focused on just surviving, he forgot his kid was watching and learning that this is what life looks like after loss. He made a decision that was probably crazy. Pulled out his phone and called Elena. When she answered, sounding surprised, he just started talking. "I need help. I know this is weird, but I need to decorate for Christmas for Lily, and I can't do it alone. All Sarah's decorations are in storage, and I can't face them by myself, and I don't know why I'm calling you, but—" Elena cut him off. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Text me your address." When Elena showed up, Lily opened the door with suspicious 7-year-old eyes. "Who are you?" Elena knelt down to her level. "I'm Elena. I'm a friend of your dad's. I'm here to help with Christmas decorations if that's okay with you." Lily's entire face transformed. "We're decorating? Really? Daddy said we could?" James appeared behind her, looking grateful and terrified. "Yeah, baby. We're decorating. Elena's going to help us because I can't do it alone." They drove to the storage unit in James's truck with Lily chattering nonstop in the back seat. But when James unlocked the unit and saw all those boxes labeled in Sarah's handwriting, "Christmas decorations, handle with joy," his hands started shaking. He just stood there staring until Elena touched his arm gently. "We can do this one box at a time. If it gets too hard, we stop. Okay?" They loaded up the truck and spent the next 3 hours transforming the house. Elena strung lights along the porch railing while James held the ladder steady, and Lily directed everything like a tiny general. They found Sarah's old Christmas playlist and played it through the speakers. And for the first time in 2 years, James's house felt alive instead of like a museum dedicated to grief. Lily fell asleep on the couch around 9 p.m., surrounded by empty boxes, and James covered her with a blanket while Elena made them both coffee in the kitchen. They sat on the floor by the Christmas tree, exhausted but something close to content. "Thank you for coming," James said quietly. "I couldn't have done this without you." Elena leaned her head back against the couch. "You could have. You just needed someone to take the first step with you. And honestly, it helped me too. I haven't decorated for Christmas in 3 years, since my mom passed." James looked at her and saw the same exhaustion and grief he carried every day. "Monica didn't just trick me, did she? She tricked you too, into dealing with your own stuff." Elena laughed softly. "She's smarter than both of us combined. Apparently, I've been so busy taking care of everyone else, I forgot I'm allowed to have a life too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the tree lights blink. Then James pulled the letter out of his pocket. "I've been carrying this around since you gave it to me. I keep almost reading it, then losing my nerve. But I think I need to do it now, and I think I need you here when I do." Elena sat up straighter. "Are you sure? This is really personal, James." But he was already opening the envelope with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. James read silently at first, and Elena watched his face go through about 17 emotions in 30 seconds. Then he started reading out loud in a voice that kept breaking. "My dearest James, if you're reading this, it's been 2 years, and I'm hoping you've started to heal. I'm hoping Lily has your smile and your terrible sense of humor. I'm hoping you're still building beautiful homes with those strong hands that I love so much." He had to stop and wipe his eyes before he could keep going. "But I'm also guessing you're still scared. Scared to move on. Scared that loving someone new means forgetting me. So let me be crystal clear. It doesn't. I want you to fall in love again. I want Lily to see you happy with someone who makes you laugh. I want you to have more love in your life, not less." Elena was crying now too, and James kept reading. "You once told me that love isn't finite, that loving me didn't mean you loved your family less. It meant your heart grew. Remember that. Your heart can grow again." His voice cracked on the next part. "I handpicked Elena for this because in those final weeks, I saw her heart. She's been hurt too. She gives everything to everyone else. She needs someone to see her for once." James looked up at Elena, who had her hand over her mouth. "She was talking about you. She wanted us to meet. She planned this 2 years ago." Elena was full-on sobbing now. "She was pretty incredible," James nodded. "She really was, and she was also apparently a matchmaker from beyond the grave." They both laughed through their tears, and James finished reading the letter out loud. "All I ask is this. Don't waste the life you have left honoring the life we shared. Live, James. Decorate for Christmas. Go on dates. Marry again if you find the right person. Give Lily a full life, not a memorial. I love you forever, but you have to let me go enough to let someone else in." They sat there on the floor for a long time, just breathing. Finally, James said, "I'm terrified of this, of feeling something for someone who isn't her." "Me too," Elena said. "I've built my whole life around not needing anyone, around being the helper, never the one who needs help." James turned to face her. "What if we just try? Like friends first. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who understand grief trying to figure out how to be happy again." Elena smiled through her tears. "I'd really like that." James stood up and offered her his hand. "Sarah gave us permission. Both of us. Maybe it's time we actually listened to her." Elena took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. They stood there in front of the Christmas tree, lights twinkling around them, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt completely alone. "One step at a time?" Elena asked. "One step at a time," James agreed. And in that moment, with Lily sleeping peacefully on the couch and Sarah's words still hanging in the air between them, they both decided to stop running from life and start walking toward it instead. Before we continue with how this story unfolds, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the people we lose give us the greatest gifts, the permission to keep living, to keep loving, to keep growing. Drop a comment if you've ever had someone give you permission to move forward after loss. We love to hear your story. 6 months later, James was finishing up a kitchen renovation when his phone rang. It was Elena asking if he wanted to grab lunch, and his crew noticed how his whole face changed when he answered. "You got it bad, boss," Danny said with a grin. And James didn't even deny it, because yeah, he did. He spent the last 6 months slowly, carefully falling in love with someone who understood his past and didn't need him to be over it. They were taking it slow. Coffee dates and walks and family dinners with Lily, who adored Elena. Somewhere between February and June, James had realized he was actually happy for the first time in years. Not the desperate, frantic happiness of someone trying to convince themselves they're okay, but real, sustainable joy. Elena had changed too. She cut back her hours at the hospice, started saying no to extra shifts, and began building a life that wasn't just about work. She joined a book club, reconnected with old friends, and most importantly, she let James and Lily into her carefully guarded heart. At lunch that day, Elena reached across the table and took his hand, and James could tell something was different. She looked nervous in a way he had never seen before. "I need to tell you something, and I'm nervous about it," Elena said. James's heart started pounding. "Okay, what's wrong?" Elena shook her head. "Nothing's wrong. It's just, I think I'm falling in love with you, and I needed to say it out loud before I lost my nerve." James felt his eyes get wet. "I think I've been in love with you since you showed up at my house to help me decorate. I was just too scared to say it. But Elena, I love you, and it doesn't feel like betraying Sarah. It feels like honoring her because she wanted this." Elena's face broke into the most beautiful smile he had ever seen. "Really? You love me?" "So much it scares me," James admitted. "You've given me my life back. You've shown Lily what it looks like when someone chooses to love us, not out of obligation, but because they want to. You've reminded me that my heart can grow, just like Sarah said." They sat there holding hands across the table, both crying happy tears this time, and James realized that grief and joy could exist in the same space. That loving Elena didn't diminish what he had with Sarah. It honored it by proving that love really isn't finite. "There's something I need to do," James said, pulling out his phone, "and I need you to come with me." 30 minutes later, they were standing in the cemetery where Sarah was buried. James hadn't been there in over a year, not because he forgot her, but because he finally understood that she wasn't here. She was in Lily's laugh, in the homes he built, in the way he learned to choose joy. Elena stood beside him, holding his hand as he knelt down by the headstone. "Hey, Sarah," James said, his voice steady. "I wanted you to meet someone. This is Elena. You already know her, obviously. You picked her for me." He laughed softly. "You were right, about everything. She's incredible. She loves Lily like her own. She sees me, and doesn't run from the messy parts." Elena knelt down beside him, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," James continued, "for loving me enough to let me go. Thank you for the letter, the video, the message. Thank you for giving me permission to be happy again. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure Lily knows how amazing you were. But I'm also going to spend it building a new life with Elena. Because you taught me that love multiplies, it doesn't divide." Elena reached out and touched the headstone gently. "Thank you for trusting me with them. I promise I'll take care of them. I promise I'll help James keep your memory alive for Lily. And I promise I'll never try to replace you. I'll just try to honor what you started." They sat there for a while in comfortable silence, and when they finally left, James felt lighter than he had in years. Like he was carrying a weight he didn't even know was there, and Sarah had finally given him permission to set it down. 1 year after that first cafe meeting, December 20th, James asked Elena to meet him at Lakeside Cafe. She showed up confused because they didn't usually go there. "Why here?" she asked as they walked to the same corner booth where everything started. James slid into the seat across from her, just like that first night. "Because this is where you delivered Sarah's message, where you cracked me open and reminded me how to live. And I need to ask you something here, where it all began." He got down on one knee right there in the booth, and the entire cafe went silent. Several people pulled out their phones, recognizing them from a year ago. "Elena Hayes, you saw me at my absolute lowest and didn't run. You helped me rebuild my life brick by brick. You love my daughter like she's your own. You've taught me that caregivers deserve care too, that hearts can heal, and that sometimes the greatest gift we can give the people we've lost is to keep living fully. Will you marry me?" Elena was crying before he even finished. "Yes, absolutely yes. I can't imagine my life without you two in it." The whole cafe erupted in applause. The same people who watched them cry a year ago were now watching them celebrate. The same waitress from before came running over, tears streaming down her face. "I was here that night you both cried," she said. "I knew you'd end up together. I've been waiting for this moment all year." James stood up and pulled Elena into his arms, and they held each other while the cafe cheered around them. And in that moment, surrounded by strangers who witnessed their journey from broken to whole, they both understood what Sarah had known all along. That love doesn't end when someone dies. It transforms. It grows. It finds new ways to exist in the world. They got married in the spring at a small outdoor ceremony with just family and close friends. Lily took her job as a flower girl so seriously she had a checklist. Flowers arranged by color, petals distributed evenly, every step practiced until perfect. James's vows were simple and devastating. Sarah taught me that love multiplies. It doesn't divide. Loving you doesn't mean I loved her less. It means my heart grew, just like she said it would. Thank you for being patient while I figured that out. Thank you for loving my daughter. Thank you for seeing me when I made myself invisible. You've given me a life I thought I lost forever. Alina's vows made everyone cry. You taught me that caregivers need care too, that it's okay to let someone see my heart, that I deserve to be loved as much as I love everyone else. Sarah left me a gift when she asked me to find you. She gave me a family I didn't know I needed. She gave me permission to stop hiding, and she gave me you. During the reception, Lily pulled Elena aside with her serious face on. Are you my mom now? Elena knelt down carefully in her wedding dress. I'm your Elena. Your mommy Sarah will always be your mom, and I would never try to replace her. But I'll always be here too. Is that okay with you? Lily thought about it for exactly 3 seconds, then threw her arms around Elena's neck. That's perfect. Mommy would really like you. She picked good. Monica, who orchestrated the whole thing, gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying at the same time. I'd like to say I'm a genius matchmaker, but honestly, all the credit goes to Sarah Truman. She planned this whole thing from a hospice bed, and I was just following orders. To Sarah, for knowing exactly what these two stubborn people needed, and to James and Elena, for being brave enough to accept the gift she left you. The next Christmas, they were all in James and Elena's house decorating together. There were photos of Sarah on the mantle right next to their wedding pictures, because you don't erase the past, you honor it while building the future. Lily was teaching Elena her mom's secret hot chocolate recipe, the one with cinnamon and a tiny bit of cayenne pepper. James was attempting to hang lights without help and failing spectacularly. When Elena walked over to steady the ladder, he looked down at her and said, "Thank you for carrying that message. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." She squeezed his ankle. "Thank you for letting me in. Thank you for teaching me that my heart could grow too. Sometimes being tricked is the best thing that ever happens to you." James thought he was meeting a donor and walked into a setup that would save his life. Elena carried a message for 2 years from a dying woman and delivered it to a broken man, ending up healing her own heart in the process. That evening, after Lily went to bed, James and Elena sat on the floor by the Christmas tree just like they had that first night a year ago. Elena pulled out her phone and showed James something she was working on. "I started a foundation," she said quietly. "The Sarah Truman Memorial Scholarship Fund, for underprivileged kids who want to go to college, and for hospice nurses who need mental health support. Because Sarah was right. Caregivers need care too." James felt tears prick his eyes. She'd love that. She'd love that so much. "The first scholarship goes out next month," Elena continued, "to a girl from the South Side who wants to be a teacher, just like Sarah was." They sat there in the glow of the Christmas lights, and James realized that Sarah's love hadn't ended when she died. It had multiplied. It had grown into this beautiful, complicated, messy new life where grief and joy existed side by side, where Lily had 2 mothers who loved her, one in memory and one in presence, where James had learned that moving forward wasn't betrayal, it was honor. "Do you think she knows?" Elena asked softly. "Do you think she can see this?" James pulled her close. "I think she's been watching the whole time, probably annoyed that it took us so long to figure it out." Elena laughed through her tears. She was very specific in her instructions. I think she knew exactly how long it would take. "She usually did," James agreed. And in that moment, surrounded by the lights Sarah loved, holding the woman Sarah had picked for him, with his daughter sleeping peacefully upstairs, James understood what his wife had been trying to tell him all along, that the people we lose don't want us to stop living. They want us to live fully, to love deeply, to choose joy even in the face of grief. Sarah had given him one last gift, the permission to be happy again, and he took it, and his life had grown because of it. This story is for everyone stuck in grief, thinking they don't deserve happiness, for everyone who needs permission to move forward. For everyone learning that loving again doesn't erase who you lost, it honors them by choosing to keep living. Sarah gave James that permission from a hospice bed, and he took it. Elena carried an impossible message for 2 years and found her own healing in the delivery. Together, they built a life that proved hearts can heal, love multiplies, and second chances are real. If this story reminded you that it's okay to be happy again, that it's okay to move forward, that the people we love want us to keep living fully, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment telling us how this story touched you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances exist. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this one. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for letting us share stories that restore faith in humanity. And remember, the people we lose don't want us to just survive. They want us to live. Fully. Completely. With open hearts and the courage to love again. Until next time, keep believing in unbroken truths.